Hey there, Miss Osuna here, and we are going to do hair with watercolor. You very well know that whatever your goal is, work is going to be required to get it and to keep it. Go on ahead, grab some drawing paper, start off with an oval, and remember, on your drawing paper you can be as loose and as fast and quick as you want to, and then from there we're going to transfer. Divide that vertically and divide that horizontally. Now divide the top section horizontally and divide the bottom section horizontally. Doesn't have to be perfect. And next we're going to put in our part on the left side and come on down the hairline on the left side, then the right. Next we're just going to add a series of soft parenthesis shapes. So there's our parenthesis facing right, and it's just a little bit above that middle line. And now on the right side of the head, you're going to come down to that first line and then add another wavy set of parentheses. So some parts face the right and some parts face the left. And that's all you need as an outline, because we're going to really be painting in the details. Now grab some tracing paper, and here's where you trace and stylize. Go on ahead and trace the lines that you want. You can emphasize certain lines. Remember, tracing is where you style. So you can push harder, make things more waved and less waved. You can play around, because you're looking through that sketch and you don't have to think about building it, you're just thinking about styling it. Okay, go on ahead and finish styling, and once you are done making your adjustments, time to move on. All right, we have our original sketch and the styled version. Now just take that tracing paper and flip it over. And I'm using the edge of my watercolor paper because I'll do several on one page because I have many classes. And I just grab the back of a Copic marker and I'm rubbing that lead onto my watercolor paper. Now remember, here's where you want to keep your paper as light as possible, but I personally make it darker so that you can see it on the camera. But do not make yours darker. Keep it as light as you possibly can so that the lead does not make your watercolor final results very muddy. So I'm just going to make a few adjustments here and darken some of the lines so that you can follow along. But remember, on yours, try to keep it as light as possible so that you can still see what to do, but that you don't really see the lead on your paper. After I finished adjusting, I'm going to go on ahead and start painting with a brush that is watercolor, and it's synthetic, and it's a size number 1. So I'm going to paint blonde hair, so I have a very inexpensive, this probably cost $2, set of watercolor paints here, and I use high and low. Sometimes I use expensive and mix it with very inexpensive and the other way around. So I'm going to start off with a yellow ochre color, and I just want you to see my mixing, and I'm also mixing it with a yellow lemon. And that is going to be my lightest color because we paint lightest to darkest in this class. This just allows you to make changes later because if you darken, it's much harder to make it white again. So I'm starting on the shadow side and at the root. Just make the parenthesis shapes, and pretty much these are only parenthesis shapes. There's nothing secret about this. It's just where I'm placing the paint. That's really the main thing here. So I'm starting on my left side, moving to the right, and then notice I'm skipping down to the point where there's white in the center where it's roundest. So my parenthesis shapes go under and above so that there's white space in the parts where it's most round. All right, so I'm on the light source side now. But remember, I still start from the left because that's our shadow side, even though I'm on the right. So literally, I'm just drawing these parenthesis shapes, and once again, where it's the roundest part, that's where I'm having the most white space. So my parenthesis shape strokes start from the left, and I'm going from top down and from bottom up. You can already see it starting to form. Now we're just gonna make our paint a little bit darker. So I'm mixing my first two colors, and I'm just mixing it in with a little bit darker paint. So whatever colors you're using, just add a tiny bit of the darker paint, and that will help. So my darker paint is, you can see here on the far left. And I started with the first two colors, and then I started adding in that slightly darker paint. You can add brown to it if you're doing blonde. You can add a tiny bit of walnut, a tiny bit of peach, whatever colors you want. You can even add a tiny bit of black or reddish tone if you wanted. So that's my second color. We're going to repeat the same process. And here we go, starting on the shadow side with the second color. And I am literally using the same brush. It's a size 1, like I said earlier, and it is a synthetic brush. I'm painting exactly on top of where I did at first, and it just feels darker because it's layered now. I am just doing a little bit of taking away some of the white space, not a whole lot. And then do the same on your light source side. So start on the shadow side and move towards the right. Just take away some of the white space, just a little bit, but pretty much you're painting on top of where you just painted, and you're just extending those strokes a tiny little bit. Again, these are parenthesis shapes. And once again, you have white space in the middle of the roundest portion of each wave. At this spot right here where I'm going around, you can see me taking away. You see I'm extending, I'm taking away some of the white. So that's all you're doing each time you go, and you just repeat this process for 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. I'm gonna now mix in some darker browns with my blondish colors so that I have a third layer. And I'm not using a lot of paint, so it dries pretty quickly. It's not super, super wet. So I'm gonna mix in all the same colors that I did earlier, and I'm adding in now darker brown, like a chocolate, to my same blonde mix, and it'll just give me the same tones as we had earlier with a deeper feeling. But it'll still be in the same family. That's important. And now because this is my darkest brush, I'm actually moving to the smallest brush possible. So the next step down is a size 3/0. So each time you paint, just consider if you want to have a bigger impact or a lesser, more subtle impact. Because this is the darkest color, I'm on a subtle impact now, so that's why I switched to the smaller brush. Once again, I am taking away some of the white space. I'm always starting on the shadow side, and each time when I extend the brush longer, it just covers up a little bit more of our white spaces, but we don't want to get rid of them totally. Okay, I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to go on in and mix up more color because I almost ran out there. So when you mix up your color, sometimes it's nice to clean off your brush and then start mixing again. So that's what I just did here. Cleaned off my brush totally, start mixing in all the colors once again, and I will go around the third, the fourth, the fifth time, however many times you want, until you feel that you're getting in the depth that you like. Same tiny small brush that I switched to, and I'm just going to start taking away even more white spaces so that it feels like hair, not just tiny thin strips that are like parenthesis shapes. We want it to feel like hair. As you continue on, it starts to feel like hair with highlights and with medium tones somewhere in the middle, and then also with some deeper tones that will act as shadows. So keep going. And you can stop whenever you feel like you literally have what you want. So now I'm just going to mix some colored pencil into the situation. I'm going to start with my lighter and just do the same thing. Instead of painting the parenthesis shapes, I'm going to be coloring them with colored pencil. Always starting on the shadow side, and it just gives a little bit more thickness to the look. But you could skip this step if you like what you already have. Okay, I'm going to go on in with a darker color. This one is terracotta. Pressing harder at the root and then pressing lighter as I draw these strokes out longer. But it's harder at the root for sure because the root will feel darker. As you continue on, darken by the neck because that's going to be naturally darker, and then move to the light source side. All right, so now I'm going to get creative here and add a little peach. It's not exactly in the same family as my yellows, but I feel like it'll give a nice effect. So use your discretion and add whatever you would like. Now I'm just going to add some white colored pencil. Sometimes it's nice to blend it together because the white colored pencil can go on top of the terracotta colored pencil and just make it feel a bit more subtle. Now, if you don't like the heaviness of your colored pencil, skip that step altogether. And here I'm just going to add some gel pen. The white gel pen that I am adding is just going to give another contrast. So we will have the thick paint from our watercolor, all three of those colors, and then that's contrasted against the colored pencil. And finally here we have the white gel pen for more contrast. Are you getting the message that I like contrast? I definitely do that within my design. So even if I'm picking fabrics, I usually pick fabrics that have a strong contrast. So pick what you like. If you don't want a contrast, you don't have to add the colored pencil, and you definitely do not have to add in gel pen. For the final touch, I'm just going to add in my lighter tones of that watercolor paint one last time on top of everything. Again, these are those lighter tones, and I still have that small brush so that I can go on ahead and control the paint. That smaller brush allows me to have more control. And again, that was a 3/0. That was the size of my smaller brush. All the brushes that I'm using are very inexpensive. They are synthetic watercolor brushes, and they are round. That's it for this time around. I can't wait to see your lovely work. Definitely feel free to hit me up on Instagram at Osuna. And until we meet again, happy sketching.